Today's guest is Kelly Howard, and we had such a fun conversation that led us. I did not even know where we would land, but we ended up getting some great tips about your feet. So, if you can imagine that. But Kelly is very knowledgeable in just kind of the little things that as we age can really help us. And so, talking to her was enlightening to say the least, and what she does and how she came to do what she's doing now and how she was led there what I like to call the universe sends us these Mack truck moments, and she definitely had one. And so that kind of led to the birth of her business that she has now, which is her kind of byline is fit is freedom. And so she talks about what that means, but it's really true that you can't really be free, and longevity matters. And if you're not fit, then that will not happen. We don't want to be tied down to 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 a body that can't serve us. And so it's important to make that a priority in our lives. And she is really good at helping people do that. So, with no further ado, let's talk and get to the interview with Kelly. Welcome to another episode of Not Your Average Lives. I have with me today Kelly Howard, and she is in the age range of that I think will bring a lot of inspiration. And she's talking about how to live healthier and talking about fitness stuff. So, are you okay if I say your age?
Absolutely.
Okay, all right.
Absolutely.
Some people I should have asked you before I hit record. She's 61, so she's a little bit younger than me, but yes, she looks amazing. If you're on my YouTube channel, you check it out because she's got a candle. And so when we got on, I was like immediately at peace because I was like, oh, I just feel like I'm in this peaceful environment looking at her background. But, anyways, welcome to the program, Kelly.
Thank you. Thank you, Lori. I appreciate it.
Yes, hear her voice, how calm it is. I'm like screechy, and you're
Okay,
like,
wait.
oh, yeah,
Okay.
so
I've like
calm. And
completely got you like buffaloed here because I am normally the one like screeching with laughter. So,
well, we would get along. So yeah, so why don't you introduce yourself to my listeners, and you know more about you than I do. So go ahead and
sure.
share what you want to share about what you do and who you help.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, my name's Kelly Howard. I am known as the fitness consistency coach with a touch of adventure. And the reason that is because I do believe that the women I work with women exclusively. Most of them are 50 plus. A lot of us are 60 plus. And I've found over the years that when you get to do some things outdoors that you never thought you could do, but you always had this little thought in your back of your head, like that might be cool, but I, hold people back or I couldn't keep up or whatever. And when you get to that point where you're actually really consistent with your fitness, you can do things that you didn't think you could do. And I think that's so powerful, like so powerful. Um, so that's why I do what I do.
Yeah, I love the fitness consistency thing because that says it all right there, right? Because
It does. I actually had dinner of one of my clients was coming through Houston last night where I live. So we went out and met, went for a little walk in the woods, and then had dinner. And we were talking about the fact that what she said to me was she was like, you know what? Before I met you, I never wanted to get quote unquote fit because it was like going to the gym, which I hate, and I had to do cardio, which, I didn't want to do. And now I've suddenly learned that it's more about like being consistent with what I like to do and then bringing in the other things that, I'm always like going, you really ought to lift a couple weights. But, bringing in those other things. But when you get really consistent with what you want to do and like to do, it's a game changer. Like
yeah.
most of us don't really want to go to the gym 3 days a week. Right?
Yeah,
It's,
yeah,
you know,
yeah. It's such a I should or
It's
I
a,
have
oh,
to. Yeah,
shoulds are a big,
yeah,
we had a
yeah,
big talk about shoulds the other day
yeah.
because
I
they
did an
just don't
episode on
work.
shoulds.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I missed
yeah,
that one. Sorry.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So I think what you do is so powerful because I've learned so much about how uh, the human person needs to be in nature. That there's
Oh, yeah.
like our frequency changes when we're with
Yes,
nature. Yeah. Do
it's
what do you
true.
Do you talk about that with people?
So I talk about, like, I always lead in with the fact that in Europe, they actually write scripts to get out in nature. Like, that's a prescription.
Wow,
And
doctors do that?
doctors do that.
Oh,
So
that's amazing. Our
you know,
doctors, Western medicine does not, that would
it's a
not be
little
something
different,
they would.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And like when I first heard that, I laughed. Like, I was like, that's hysterically funny. And then I started thinking about it and I went, but it makes us well. It does make us well. Like if we're, even when, you know, you don't need to go backpacking for a week or a month or tackle the Appalachian Trail to get out into nature just enough to really like change your frequency, change your mindset, like stop, relax, breathe. Like nature, and when I say nature, it's just being outside, right? I mean, probably for me, being outside in the city of Houston isn't the same, but being outside in my yard is. It just makes everything like settle. And when we can settle, then it's so much easier to become really good at whatever it is that we want to do. Really like invested in it. Because you know, it's I don't want to say stop, drop and roll, but we're like we stop, we drop into the space and then we're there.
Yeah. Yeah, I would walk with my dog a lot, and
Yeah,
I know I do it for him, but I find that just those walks, 20 or 30 minutes, does a lot for me.
it does. It
And I
does.
have a porch, and I like to sit out in the winter, it's not an option, but and sometimes in the summer it gets super, super hot. So what I've started doing, I just recently bought like this vertical fan so
Mm-hmm.
I can sit out there more often because it
Nice.
stirs up the air, but then I feel like I'm outside, but
Right.
I'm really inside, but I'm outside, but I'm getting that feeling of being
Yeah.
outside. So I love
Yeah.
that. What are some activities that like a lot of people might be like, we think of walking, we think of hiking. So what are some activities? It's funny that we should be talking about this because I was just talking, I think it was earlier today or late yesterday with somebody about paddleboarding. And
Okay.
because
Perfect.
we're talking about that how that's getting outside and it's good exercise, and how Costco has these amazing, like I think I don't know if they're inflatable kayaks they're selling, but
They're
they're doing a
inflatable
lot of
SUPs too.
they're doing a lot of
Yeah.
outdoor equipment at Costco, and it got me thinking because paddle boards, I've seen yoga on paddle boards, but I've never tried it, and I think that would be so much fun. So what kinds of things, like what can you think of that would make people excited to try something new?
Well, you've talked about the two what I call the gateway drugs. So hiking is the thing that it's so easy, right? It's really just a walk in the woods. And like sometimes people will be a little bit uncomfortable because they might get lost or something like that. So apps on your phone,
Yeah.
short out and backs. I mean, there's just so many things you can do to just step out of your comfort zone slightly and head out in the woods.
A
And when I say the
compass.
woods, like,
The
you know, the
old
woods, it
fashioned thing,
sounds
a compass.
right. Sounds so crazy. Like I live in Houston. We
Yeah.
have about 3 trails. Those are my woods. But then the other one is stand-up paddleboarding. It is really anyone can do it because, like, this is the because. The because is that if you buy an inflatable board, okay, which they're inexpensive, they're easy to move, they're easy to store, they're all the easy things, right? They might be a little tippier than a hard board. So you start off on your back end, just sitting on the board, paddling a little bit. Maybe you go to your knees. Eventually, you get to the point where you're standing up, you're on your feet, you feel great, you're rocking the board. But
Isn't that good
it's
for your
so
core
easy.
too, to like have to balance a little bit? Doesn't that make you,
So
yeah.
the stand-up paddleboard, people think of it as kind of like an arm workout, right? It's really not. It's like you said, it's core, because you've got that balance, and because if you're okay, here I can't help it. I'm going to go into like a training mode. But if you're moving properly on the board, you're actually using your core even when you stroke. So it also is upper body and it's lower body. But so it's really an all over movement that is so good for us. And if you happen to be somewhere where, when we're recording this, it's summer and summer is treacherously hot in a lot of places right now, you're on the water. So it's
Mm,
definitely cooler.
yeah,
And
yeah. You
yeah,
make me wanna do it now.
it's,
So
it's fun. And
we're gonna
and
afford.
I will say this, like a lot of times I'll be like, most inflatable, like inflatable kayaks are usually not the greatest. Inflatable sups are awesome. Like they're awesome. They're
So they
inexpensive.
have inflatable paddle boards. I That's what I was gonna
They
say, but
do.
I was like, "No, those are kayaks," but they have
No,
inflatable.
it's paddle boards. I actually
Wow.
own an inflatable paddle board. Um,
Wow. That's so
and
cool. I
they
My
weigh
massage
nothing.
therapist has an inflatable kayak, and
Uh-huh.
it's got a foot pedal, and she said it's super easy to pump up because you think, "Oh my gosh, it's gonna take forever," and I don't have the lung capacity, but it's not like that old-fashioned kind of how you blow things
Right.
up. Yeah.
Yeah, you don't have to, yeah, you don't have to blow it up with your mouth. That would be tough.
So do you
But
teach? Do you teach paddleboarding? You said you're
you know,
training mode, gonna get into
I
training.
I do. My last business was an outdoor activity company. So I taught people to do all the things that I like to do because I think it's so important. Now, like if I'm running a retreat for my ladies, I'll do teaching then, or today one of my people just bought a new kayak and she wants to do a race. So she was like, "What do I do?" I was like, "Here's a video, watch
Oh,
it.
that's good.
I've done this enough." Um,
What was
Kayaking
the
is a
Oh,
great
sorry.
one.
Go
Oh
ahead.
no, I was just going to say you were asking about some of the fun ones.
Mhm.
Kayaking is a really good one because it's a it's to me kayaking is spiritual. Like it's you are out there, you're on the water, and it's easy to paddle. Anyone can paddle. Like we instinctively know how to go forward in a boat. So the only thing that happens with them is they can be a little bit heavier than a stand-up paddleboard,
Mm.
but easy to use. So what were you going to ask?
Well, I was gonna switch gears, but yeah, that's
Sure.
helpful. It made me think when you're just talking about the kayaking and even the paddle boarding, it's something where it takes us away from the busyness of our world, and we can get with our own thoughts too. Even though you're actually like probably thinking about what you're doing, you can get into a place where it becomes where there's times when you're probably just floating and you're not actually doing something, but even the act of paddling on a paddle board, it just gets you away and into the silence,
It
which
is very meditative. It
yeah,
really is.
yeah, which is
Yeah.
so important. I mean, people should really, if they have trouble meditating and they need to exercise and they're beating themselves up about going to the gym, maybe this is something they should pursue, right?
I agree.
Yeah. So where was I was going to switch modes to is I'm always curious about the Kelly before. Like, was there a Kelly that wasn't fit before? Was there
Oh,
what was the
that's
life?
that's
I
an
mean,
interesting question.
we're
Yeah.
we're in our 60s. There was clearly a life before.
Yeah. So I've been one of those people who's very blessed because I've always been kind of a small body type and fairly mobile, right? Like I raced sailboats when I was in my 20s, and then I picked up long distance skating when I was in my 30s. But I didn't do like all the stuff I do now until I was in my late 40s. And at that point, I bought a company that was an outdoor adventure company. And I always had to stay like one step ahead of everybody. But this might lead, if you don't mind, into that thing you asked me about, like what made me switch. Because what happened was I had this base of fitness, but not really fitness. I had this base of not being very heavy. So, I'd always like skated or whatever. And then I got into this outdoor business and I was always trying to stay ahead of everybody, like, so that I could teach them what to do. And I was learning all this stuff. Well, I wasn't taking care of my true foundational fitness, right? I was busy. I was building a company. I'm taking care of my mom, who's like this amazing woman, but she's suddenly had a heart attack and fallen, and now I'm caring for her. And I'm actually being the general contractor on a new home that we bought, and just like all the stuff, right? So my fitness was the furthest thing from my mind because I could always get by. Like, always been able to until like one day I woke up and I couldn't get out of bed. Like was in so much pain that I literally crawled to the bathroom, peed, laid on the bathroom floor and thought, maybe I'm dying, right? like
Was there
That
no
was my
sign of
thought.
it? Was it, or was it a slow progression of feeling like
No, there
crap?
was no sign. It was just like wake up one morning and that was that. My body had had enough.
Wow, isn't that
Flat out
interesting?
had
That's what
enough.
happens. Like that's the universe's version of a Mack truck. Stop what
It
you're doing.
was.
Yeah.
It was. It was the big slap down. And it was also karmic too, because a friend of mine had had this happen like maybe a year before and I'd laughed at him. I'm so sorry. Like, he was like, I bent down and then I couldn't do anything. And I was like, how can this happen to us? And so what happened was I realized that I wasn't unusual. Okay. The fact that I was now back in my bed and like Googling to see if maybe I had like, I don't know, kidney failure or something, because really, truthfully, I wanted to be anything other than what I knew it was. And I knew it was simply that I hadn't been taking care of my fitness. You know,
Mm.
I'd just been getting by. And all that stress, all that sitting on my back end and working, all of that stuff was catching up with me. And so what I realized was that it was happening to all my friends. Like all of us were overworked, we're sitting on our in our office chairs for hours a day. We're being like maybe weekend warriors where we go out and do something really fun on the weekend and then we're back to, not doing anything during the week because we've got so much stuff to take care of. And it the prognosis wasn't good for any of us.
Yeah, I heard this quote yesterday, sitting is the new smoking.
It is.
I was like,
It
wow, that's
is.
powerful.
It's the truth because we're not made to sit, right? Like we're just not made to sit on our back ends all
And
day
hunch over a
long
computer.
and hunch over. Exactly. I mean,
Yeah.
you can see it. Now I'm going to digress, but you can see it in people who walk around staring at their phones.
Mm.
Young,
Because they're leaning over.
young people with
Mm.
that, like the dowagers. Is that how you say it? I think is the dowager hump happening already. It's like
Mm.
we're we're going down a bad path. And if you ever look at like where longevity is, it's in all those people who live in places where they move. They don't
Yes.
go to the gym necessarily, but they move consistently.
Yeah, my
And
my watch has a stand-up goal. Like not even just a walking goal, but a stand-up goal. And I thought,
that's
wow,
crazy,
that's
isn't it?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And so, and when you don't stand up enough, like I get like alerted. So that's
Do you,
crazy to
here's
think
my
that.
trick for that. I drink a lot of water.
Oh, yes.
So I
Yes,
have to
gotta have to
stand
go
up
to
a
the
lot.
bathroom. Yeah. But then you sit when you go to the bathroom.
Yeah, but you got that little space.
That's funny. Yeah. So you did this business and so what happened to the business when you couldn't
So
like get up
what
and go do
happened
it?
was I was able to get past that little hump in about 5 days. Okay. Like I was over my lying in bed looking, to see if I was dying in about 5 days.
But what did you do in
And
those 5 days? I mean, like, did you go to the doctor?
no, no, I
Did you
didn't
have
go
a
to the
fever
doctor.
or you
No,
just
no, no. This was
oh
this
my
was
gosh.
100% Kelly doing all the things wrong, and now her back is just like scrunched down and said, "Forget it, we're done."
Uh,
So, and it happens,
so just kind of forced rest.
Yeah, it was forced rest, and it was
Yeah.
also forced journaling.
Mm.
That was what I did more than anything. Was I really just thought, and I thought long and hard, and I went, okay, I can't. So at that point, I was probably 50. So it's 10 years ago. Well, really 11 years ago, going on 12. So back then, I was like, okay, I can't foresee a life where I won't be able to do all the things I love to do for as long as I possibly want to. I mean, that to me is like the name of my company is Fit as Freedom because I believe that freedom, everybody's got a different idea of freedom, but for most of us, it has to be able to take care of ourselves, do the things that we want to do for as long as we want to do them, right? And I lay there thinking that that's not what I was doing right now was not freedom. It was I was living a life that was just shutting me down. So in that moment, this current business was born. But it took me a few years to get here because I had to sell my other business and do all that good stuff. But it really was. It was just 5 days of soul searching and
Mm.
going, okay, if this is what you've got to look forward to, you're in trouble. So how are you going to change it? And
Yeah.
fitness
That's interesting how
consistency,
a new business is birthed as a result of
it
something like
is.
that.
It really is. And
Connecting with
yeah.
your soul and like listening to your inner voice.
Yeah. It really, like, that was it. And then the more I thought about it, the more I thought my passion is working with women. Like my past business, I had guys and gals. I really did everything I could to make sure the women were getting everything they needed, as you know, were flourishing however they wanted to flourish. And it's just a sole purpose for me.
That's how I am too.
Yeah.
I've men friend me on Facebook or send me a message, block. I thought, and I mean,
I'm
it's
like, yeah, yeah.
terrible. It's terrible to say that, but I just like, no need for that.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, I like guys, but
Go find
it's
somebody
just
who
not my
helps
passion.
your
Yeah.
type. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's so cool. So amazing. Yeah. So what does consistency look like for you when it comes to fitness? Because consistency, is that like a daily activity? Is that just doing what works for you in terms of being consistent? Is it more than X amount of times? What does that mean?
Oh, that is a really good question, because it's such a great question, because a lot of times when people come to me, they expect to have like a set schedule. And I create a schedule for myself every week. Okay. Sunday night, schedule time. And I schedule out, and this is like one of the things I do with people is I'm like, look at your week coming up. Where are the roadblocks? What's going to stop you from doing the things you want to do? And then get your minimum daily movement in there, because I think we all need to have a minimum daily movement, which could be, should we say should, could be like usually some walking and something we call nitros in my group, which is kind of a really quick, easy movement that is good for your muscles, good for your, clearing out your body. So that minimum
More than
daily
just walking
movement.
from one room to the next in your house.
Oh, yeah, good point. Yes, to me, walking is actually either getting on a treadmill, if that's your thing, or getting out the door, which is what I usually suggest people do. Everyone's schedule is different though, you know? Like, and everyone is different. Just to kind of go back before I go through my schedule, but just to go back to that whole minimum thing. Like, I have a client who she doesn't like to get up in the morning. She just doesn't. I'm like, you're my age. Aren't you supposed to be getting up early now? She's like, nope, I'm sleeping to the last possible second. So at 5 o'clock, she'll text me. She's like, okay, I'm getting ready to do my stuff. I'm like, great, go for it. And then she texts me about 5:20, 5:30, and she'll say, okay, I did 6 minutes of this and 5 minutes of that, and this and this, and I'm done. Great. Like, it may not be a lot for her. Well, it may not be a lot, but it is a lot for her, because 6 months ago she didn't move at all. So now she's moving 5 to 6 days a week with 20 to 30 minutes a day.
That's
If you
awesome.
read stuff, reading stuff says you should be able to walk, I don't know, it's not much. It's like 90 minutes a week, and then something else. Like, that's really minimum to me. For
Mm.
myself, like, consistency to me is always doing some mobility work in the morning. And mobility work is more, it's more than stretching, because stretching doesn't always work for people. It's warming up your joints. I walk most days because it's a compulsive habit. Like, I mean,
And when you say walk, do you like walk fast? Or what I did, I used to run, and and I have a knee that was surgically repaired when I was a teenager. So it's pretty good. I go to a chiropractor, so I usually doesn't flare up, but sometimes I would walk if I'm like, feel like my knees needs a break. But I would do like, I would find music that would go a certain number of beats per minute, so I could keep the pace at
right.
which was usually like 4 miles per hour, whereas like when I would run, it would be like 6.5 or something. So I found like having, instead of just strolling, I mean, does it matter really whether you stroll or whether
Yeah,
you
it
walk
does. It matters
faster?
a lot. It
Okay.
matters a lot. Yeah. I call it perceived effort, because, like, you liking music, I have a lot of people who like music. I don't usually listen to music when I'm out there. But what I suggest to people is that between 1 and 5, you know what your perceived effort is, and that perceived effort, which that stroll, like you and I could be having a conversation like this on that stroll, that's a 1 to 2. It's really not going to do anything other than maybe make you feel a little bit good because you're outside.
Mm.
A 3 is actually starting to get your heart rate up a little bit. That's where you can carry on a conversation, but you notice it. When you get to that 4 or 5, that's when conversations could be a little bit stifled, right? You're sweating. You can be sweating at a 1 in Houston right now, but you're feeling it. And I also like to have people, go between that 3, 4, 5. Also, if possible, to do some hills,
Yeah, we
right?
have a really steep hill, and it's like, to get
Awesome.
to the
Like,
top of it. It's very steep, but it's not too long, so that's good.
that's great, and you can do like high intensity training when you're walking. You can do it on hills. I mean, like for us where I live, there are no hills, but there are like ramps that go down to the bayou behind my backyard, so I can go up and down ramps. It's just
Mm.
it's just kind of getting used to it. I think always, of course, like I am not a doctor. I have no letters behind my name. You check with your doctor before you start something. But at the same time, once you know that you've got a good heart and you're ready to go, you should get out there and do some movement.
Yeah, and the
Um,
treadmill you can raise. You can
you
make it
can
into an
raise it on a
incline, and
treadmill.
yeah, your heart
Um,
rate. Yeah, yeah.
you another good thing you can do is you can get a couple of plastic bottles of water, and while you're walking, you can do arm curls and kickbacks and military
It's a great
presses and
idea.
right, like
Yeah.
use your arms. You're going to realize that that increases the effort of what you're doing exponentially very quickly. And it's also building up, some strength because we do need that strength. Like it, I won't say that you need to go to a gym, but I will say that you need to figure out some ways to get some strength because that's the thing that our muscles start going downhill after about 40.
Mm.
They don't just naturally hold together. So it's what keeps us strong and vibrant is to be strong. So I am not a personal trainer, but I do like push a lot that people at least do some sort of body weight exercise because it matters. It
Mm.
really does matter.
Yeah. Yeah. I noticed too that my core, it takes more work the older I get. And when I don't have a strong core, my back hurts. I start to use my back differently. Like when I lean over, if I don't have a strong core,
Mm-hmm.
then I'm relying on back muscles. So having a weak core is not a good thing because it can
It's
turn
not. I
into,
mean,
yeah.
it everything kind of starts shifting. But
Yeah.
another thing is that when I first start working with everybody, I ask them to do an intake quiz. And one of the things they do is I ask them to stand on one foot for for as long as they can and then switch to the other one. A lot of times people will say, "Oh, my legs got tired." I'm like, "Really?" And they're like, "Oh, I don't think that was a good thing to tell you."
Yeah, yeah. That's
Right?
a sign.
It's a sign. It's a sign we should be using them a little bit more.
Sounds like a sobriety test, but yeah.
It is a little bit. Don't do this at night.
Yeah, yeah. That's awesome. How long do you have to stand on one leg? Maybe people can try it at home and see.
Oh, well, actually, it's a really important thing to do because balance is so important for us, right?
That's why yoga,
Balance,
I like yoga because you have
yoga's
the
great
tree
for
stand, and
balance.
yeah, yeah.
All of that, like anything you can do for balance. But even like if you just if the people who are listening, if y'all just think about it for 1 second, like have something where you can put your hand down. Like, be careful, but just stand on one foot. Don't even have to have that other foot in tree pose if you don't want, but just stand there, have your hand somewhere where you can put it down if you need to. Look around a little bit because when you're doing yoga, you pick that spot and that makes you more solid. So look around a little bit while you're doing that one-legged stand. Do it on the other foot and then do it every day for a week and then next week fold up a towel, put it on the floor, do the same thing. Because what that's going to do is it's going to like take you off center just a little bit. So now you've got to work a little bit harder to get that
Mm.
balance back. And you just keep doing it and what you're going to find is that your balance does come back solid as a rock. And
Yeah.
it's one of those things that we really need.
Yeah, yeah. Now in terms of the towel, do you like put your entire foot on the towel or do you put like it under
Yeah.
your heel or
No, when you're using a towel, like using a towel for balance, I mean, I have like a piece of foam that I keep under my desk that I can use. But a towel is just a simple one that you just fold it a few places and then put your whole foot on it because it becomes a slightly unstable surface.
yeah. Yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah. And do these things barefoot if you can. It's good for your feet.
Yeah, I had in my Beachbody coaching days, I had a client and she used to work, she was from Hawaii. And I didn't know until like I'd been working with her for a while. And one day she said, "Oh, yeah, I said, I think I even said, oh, I had to work out barefoot because I forgot my sneakers or something." And she was, "Oh, I always work out barefoot." I was like, "What? I never thought about working out barefoot, but it really does work your muscles in your feet,
It
right?"
does. It does. For years I used to wear a kind of sandal kayaking that was a very solid sandal. And then I thought that I needed that support, right? But I started noticing that my feet were looking a little funky, you know. The toe was going places it shouldn't. And one day I just decided to start paying attention to this. And I realized that by using those sandals 24/7, that what I was doing was making my feet weak. So I went
Mm.
through this entire, 2 years of strength training for my feet. They're not, they're, those toes are still going places they shouldn't, but at the same time, my feet are so much stronger now. And you have so many of your muscles and your tendons and your bones are in your feet. Um,
Yeah, and you think as we age, how that is so important to be stable. Gosh, I
it's really
never thought
important.
about that. I
Yeah.
was talking about my core, but your legs,
Your
thinking about a
legs,
table, we're a two-legged table, and our
we
feet
are.
are so important. And
Yeah,
you're so right that what happens to feet is that's almost like they atrophy, and so
they do.
they're not like gripping the floor anymore. Oh my gosh,
Yeah,
that's very interesting. I think that's a
yeah.
very powerful tip.
Oh,
Like
good, good.
get your feet in. Like so, should people go barefoot more? I mean, the paddle boarding you actually would be barefoot on.
You, I would suggest people to go barefoot paddleboarding, um, if at all possible. Like sometimes people are in places where they might have, stuff in the water or,
Oh,
sticks or
water
something to
shoes.
step on,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Water shoes. Um, and what you'll learn is if you're barefoot paddleboarding, you're actually standing up, you'll find very quickly how strong your feet are. Because first what thing that happens is I'll call it monkey toes, but people kind of hold onto the board with their toes and their feet will get really tired very quickly. So paddleboarding is a good foot exercise. I mean, for myself, and everyone's different. Like some people can't do this because their feet hurt. But for myself, I wear toe socks with toe shoes, like toe Vibrams, um, just because, I don't know, just because I don't want to walk on the tile floor all the time, but that's my walk around shoes in
Yeah,
the
some people
house.
use those for running, right? Like I think
Yes,
my nephew
yes,
had a pair of those and got into running big time because they emulate running barefoot and
they do.
yeah, yeah.
They work great.
And there's some tribe that I think it's a tribe that they're known for like long
Yeah,
distance running and
in
they run
Mexico,
barefoot. Yeah, that's
they do.
crazy. Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, I like Vibrams. I've run in them before. Um, Mostly I run in zero drop.
What's that?
So
Oh, is that a
it's when
brand?
it's basically a flat, no, it's basically a flat shoe.
Okay.
So, like when you get to that point where if you're out there and you really want to do a lot of trail work and you want to work on your feet, you eventually get to like a flat zero drop shoe.
Mm,
And it's just, it keeps your feet stronger,
mm.
right?
Yeah, maybe we can link up to whatever that is in the show notes so people can check it out. Yeah, I have and it's not so much anymore, but I think I've helped it. I don't know if my feet are gotten stronger, but I was having problems with my arches where I was getting like I was having pain and my chiropractor said to get like arch support because my shoes weren't supporting me. So in my tennis shoes, I would put these little arch supports in there and they're fine. But like I'm wearing shoes right now that don't have I mean, I think they have built-in arch support, but it's funny, I haven't noticed it for now that I think about it, like at least a year. I haven't had that problem. So maybe I've built up some muscles. I haven't
Yeah,
intentionally been
maybe.
building up muscles, but
Maybe,
yeah,
yeah.
is that something that like if I'm having pain in like my arches, is that usually due to just not being my feet not being strong enough?
Ooh, okay. Um, Probably. Like I have very high arches. That's what
Mm,
got me into these sandals that I was talking about earlier. I used to wear Chacos. They allowed for that high arch, but what I found was that my foot didn't need to do anything. It was just kind of
yeah.
like on this high arch, hanging around. And so instead of getting insoles, what I did instead was I started doing like exercises for my feet, like
Oh.
putting a towel down underneath my desk, and I would just like crunch it up with my toes and push it back with my toes. And um, I also like if your feet are hurting, God, everyone listening is going to be like, "What are they doing? Show and tell." But see this little ball?
Oh yeah. Looks
It's
like something
called
my dog would
rugs.
love to chase.
Your dog would love this. I have,
Little nubby
yeah,
ball. I have
I
one of
gotta
those
hide it from
actually.
dogs, but it's
I was
called
like, what is this
rugs.
for?
You put it underneath your foot when your foot's hurting, and you just rub it. It's like a trigger ball for your feet. So you just rub your heels back and forth on it. You rub it across your arch. You rub it across the ball of your feet. And a lot of times, well, I took a client hiking one day. She wanted to go train. So she came into town. We went for a hike. In my head, we're going for a hike. In her head, we're going for a little hike. So I took her for like 3.5 hours because she needed to train. And she calls me and she said, "You broke me." And I went, "What?" She's like, "I can't walk. My feet hurt so bad." I'm like, well, that's interesting. Sorry. But then I thought about it and I thought, she had the right shoes. She had everything she needed. So I told her to get a tennis ball, same as one of these, and to start rubbing that foot back and forth across the tennis ball and call me back in 2 hours. And her feet were fine in 2 hours because what she had done was just, we think we've bruised our feet, right? And that our feet are like not well. But the truth is that, all those little muscles in there get sore. And so she just rubbed them out just like you would massage something out.
Oh,
And then she was fine.
that's
So
amazing. She
you
thought
could
you
try
were
that.
magical. You just like a magical touch, magical tricks. That's
Believe me,
awesome.
I've had all the aches and pains over the years, so I've learned.
Yeah, and if she's not like hurting during the walk,
Right,
then it's
right.
probably just like soreness from the walk.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly.
that's
Yeah.
amazing. So, you had this outdoor business, and I guess it led you on this path to this fit is freedom. I love that. And so you sold that business, and
I
now you're
did.
largely doing coaching and serving the
Yes.
women that you
So
serve, and that's
I
yeah.
did. I sold that business and well, I sold it for two reasons. One reason was that I needed to be location independent. So what I do now allows me to do that. And then the
Yeah, I was
other
going to
reason
ask you, where
was
was that? Was that in Houston or was it
it was
somewhere
in
else?
Houston. It
Oh,
was in
okay.
Houston. Like,
Oh,
talk about a unicorn, an outdoor business in Houston. But we did
yeah.
an amazing job. Like, I had thousands of members, and it was so much fun.
Good.
But now all I do is I just work with women online. I mean, occasionally, we'll see each other. Like I said, a client was in Houston last night. I saw her, took that client hiking. We do retreats about 3 times a year. But otherwise, I do group coaching, a little one on one. And my job is to be a cheerleader, to give people hope, to help when they're hurting, because a lot of things hurt when we've been using our bodies for a long time. And I've learned lots of little tricks and tips, and then just to make sure that we're having fun.
Yeah.
Like that is one of my drivers is
Yeah.
fun and freedom. Like
Yeah. What
how
does your
much better can you
retreat
get?
involve? Is it a lot of outdoor activities kind of retreat?
It kind of depends.
It
So I
depends.
took a
Yeah.
group to Costa Rica about 2 months ago, and it was nonstop, full on, to the point where, like, the last couple of days, most everybody was like, "Had enough, Kelly. I'm going to the beach. Leave me alone." But we had a
Uh,
ball. We went
yeah,
rafting and stand-up paddleboarding and hiking
fun.
and
Sounds like
all
my
ki
idea of a retreat. I would love that.
it
Yeah.
was so much fun. And then I take a group every year to the Smoky Mountains, and that's just like lots of hiking and a little kayaking. But I
What's
have
a
one in Texas. Pardon?
Mhm. I was gonna ask you what's the scariest thing that's ever happened to you. I always think about bears with
Oh,
outdoor
you
adventures.
know,
I hear outdoor adventures like kayaking, and I'm like, okay, the bears might be close when you like are doing that kind
there
of stuff. Do you do
it de
camping or is it mostly lodge?
okay, so with the retreats, we don't camp.
Okay.
We get really nice places. Really nice places. Our Texas retreat, I rented a 1,000-acre ranch. Like, it's beautiful. Because I think that, sleep is important. I
Yes.
don't,
Glamping. I'm all for glamping. Yes.
yeah,
I mean, it's
yeah.
better than glamping, it sounds like. Yes. I like
Yes,
those.
it's
Yeah.
better than glamping.
Nice
But
towels, nice sheets. Yes.
exactly.
Yes.
Nice food, good
Yes.
food. I think good
Yes.
food's important.
Yeah.
And then, lots of play.
Yeah.
So,
That's awesome. All right. Well, let's wrap up. I like to end with asking my guests, what does living a not your average life mean to you? And how do you exemplify that?
oh, let's see. Well, okay. I have worked for myself my entire life. I had a job once for 6 months and I got fired, which was probably really good.
What job was
And
that?
I was, I had a business and I sold it. It was a former business that I sold. And part of the selling was that I was supposed to come to work for the company for a year and help them get going. But during that year, they made me, okay, literally, I was chief love officer of an online website. And the there was no love between the owner and I because I kept telling him what he was doing wrong. And he finally just fired me.
You broke up.
We broke up. We broke up.
What
But
made you?
yes,
I mean, this is so interesting. I'm kind of going off the point here of like asking your question, and we'll get back to that. But like, what? Why did you never have a job? That's really kind of unusual. Did you have parents that were like owned
no,
businesses or?
my parents were normal. Um, I had a this is probably what did it. I started a fruit stand when I was about 16. I don't know why I did this, but we made so much money that summer. It was crazy. And then I went to get your typical after summer job at Pizza Hut or something, and it was just awful. I probably lasted a day, and I went, this is never going to happen again. And I just started working, figure out ways to work for myself. And I have actually started and sold 4 businesses in my life.
Mm.
And so I love doing that.
So are you saying you're
More,
not normal? Because you said your parents
yes,
were
I'm not
normal.
normal.
So
I
that's
hope I'm
what's
not
not
normal.
your average. That's what like being a not your average life is a not normal life,
Not normal. I'm all
abnormal,
about
an
not normal,
abnormal
right?
life. Yeah,
Yes, I'd abnormal and adventure. Like I
yeah,
love adventure. Like
yeah. That's funny.
my favorite thing in the world is whitewater kayaking. And so like anything I can do that kind of pushes me out of my comfort zone and has me learn new things, I I love it. I just love it. I thrive on that.
That's cool. What is the best place to whitewater raft? Or I'm
Oh,
sorry, to kayak? Because
yeah.
when you said that, I'm like, I've whitewater raft, so it's a little different than kayaking. You know,
It's a little different.
yeah,
It's a
yeah,
little
it's a little
different, but it's still
you're on the
whitewater.
edge of this like
Yeah.
raft.
I mean,
Yeah,
whitewater rafting is a big deal. It's fun. We
yeah.
had a blast whitewater rafting in Costa Rica this last time.
But that
But
can be dangerous. I mean, just like what rapids and being in that kind of environment, I know can be pretty dangerous because I had the training when I went whitewater rafting, and they tell you like if you get stuck in one of those swirls, how to get
in a
out.
hole.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So
Yeah.
yeah, so where's the best place?
Best place. Okay. I don't know the best place. I know my favorite place is in the southeast Smoky Mountain area of the United States because it is just so beautiful and there's rivers and streams and I mean it when you get out there on those rivers, I could take you into a whole nother podcast here, sorry, but I'm just going to say when you're out there on those rivers, you are truly like just you and your friends. I mean, that's it. I've traveled
Yeah.
on rivers that was just three of us in Canada for days, and I've done it all over the place. And these rivers are just gorgeous. So, and it doesn't, for everyone listening, you don't have to do white water to be able to get out on these beautiful, gorgeous rivers that take you for days and days. And that would be like one of those things that being consistent with fitness allows you to do, because you really can paddle for 5 or 6 days and experience things that are just mind-bogglingly gorgeous.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it makes me think, like, no technology, leave your iPhones at home. That
Nada.
sounds delightful. So,
Yes.
yes, thank you so much for being here. I like your non-normal self. You're just amazing. So, thanks for sharing your tips. I think people are gonna have better feet as a result. So,
Good, good.
thanks. Thanks
Yes,
so
thank you so
much.
much, and good day to everybody. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you so much for tuning into the Not Your Average Lives podcast. If you haven't yet, make sure to subscribe on iTunes if you have an Apple device. You can find free resources and learn what else I have going on at the moment that might interest you on my website at notyouraveragegrandma.com. You can also find me on Instagram or Facebook at Not Your Average Grandma. If you liked this episode, it would make my heart so happy if you could leave me a 5-star rating. You can also add a review to let me know what you like about this podcast, which will help spread the word about it to others who need a little midlife inspiration. As always, be you, listen to your inner voice, and focus on reigniting that lost spark so you can start living your own, not your average life.